This is the Vegas Huddle with Mike Davis.
Welcome to the Las Vegas Huddle. It's the podcast. It's the show. I'm your host, Mike Davis. We're here with the Super Bowl champion, the UNLV graduate, Leo Gray. Leo, so great to have you here with us, spending some time, a Super Bowl champ, a local guy. Tell us a little bit. First of all, being here in Vegas, the community, you've really taken to this community like no other. You're out and about. You're representing the Raiders. You're doing so many good things in our community. How have you enjoyed just being a part of Las Vegas?
Thanks, Mike. I've really enjoyed it because I've seen the whole transformation. I came out here and it was probably 150,000 people. Now we have close to 3 million. So, you saw different things back then. It was having went to UNLV, we were kind of boxed in. I mean, it was like only so many casinos at the time. I think the streets went as far as Rainbow. It was something like that, maybe a little past Rainbow. And it was just a microcosm of what we're looking at. And we had real active casino. The few casinos that we did have, the people were real active with the teams at UNLV. Of course, Jerry Tarkanian was there. And my first roommate when I came out here was from Los Angeles as well, and he played basketball for Tark. So we were able as football players to do a lot of things based on what the basketball players were doing because they were well connected, locked in with it all. That was just Jerry. I mean, Jerry was very active and a winner and all those other things, a great recruiter, a great coach.
It was big time back then here in Vegas. But, part of what we do here in the Vegas Huddle is we try to talk to people who are excelling in athletics and just try to learn their whole story and the narrative of how they got to where they were and how, where they are today. And, so let's start at the beginning with you. You're an LA born guy. Growing up, I'm sure you're playing a lot of sports, different types of things. How quickly did you take to football in particular? When did you really know in your life, I'm going to be a professional football player?
Well, Mike, to be honest, growing up, I thought I was going to be the next Jimi Hendrix.
Are you serious?
I was playing a guitar.
You were pretty good?
Yeah, I was pretty good. Yeah, I started because my dad played the piano. My mom was a singer. And so we have that musical background in the family.
And they were professionals.
Yeah. Well, my dad wasn't a professional. My mom was a professional singer. But my dad just played, a piano. He was in the school band and all that at Manual Arts High School way back when. But anyway, we had a piano in the garage. We had a guitar. We had an amplifier. And I just started, messing around, playing on the keyboard and just going back and forth. And I got better and better. And then I started playing the guitar and I got better. And then this whole Jimi Hendrix thing popped in my head. And I was watching, footage of him and different things. And we actually performed. We were in a group, and this is like 11 years old, 12 years old.
So this you're self-taught.
Yeah, self-taught. I was no lessons, didn't know how to read music.
And were you one of those weirdos who could you could hear Purple Haze on the radio
and
by
ear.
You could just play by and replicate it?
And I was actually doing, writing some of my own stuff. Not writing it, but I would just compose my own stuff. And so I was doing really well. I had that guitar in my hand from first thing in the morning until my mom came in there, go to bed, and I would have blisters and I was into it. But somebody broke in our home and they stole my guitar and my amp. And then my mom couldn't afford to buy me another one. And my mom and dad had gotten divorced at that time. And so I was pretty much on my own as far as trying to continue playing music. So I got bored, and I would walk to the front porch, look out the window, and the kids were playing football up and down the street. And I would just watch, look like something foreign to me. And that's how I got my start. I started watching, and then I went from looking out the window in the living room to going on the porch watching to going down the steps, asking if I could, play. And then at first they would have me just hike the ball. I would play center or something like that. And I was,
You have to work your way
Yeah, and I started watching the NFL on TV, started watching football, and I started picking up things. So I started to get better and better and better. And then I ended up playing at 13. I played in a little flag league, and I got better doing that. And then when I went to high school, freshman year, went out for the team at my high school. I went to an all-boy Catholic high school in Los Angeles called Mount Carmel, about 5 minutes from USC off of Hoover, in the hood,
Wow.
tough neighborhood. But I went there. So the freshman year, I broke my ankle right before the first game. So I didn't play that year. Come back my sophomore year, and everything just started to take off. The ankle healed, and I got better and better, stronger and stronger.
So, okay, let's talk about this. So, I mean, if your garage is never broken into, does Leo Gray become a musician instead of a football player? I mean, that was the trajectory.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know nothing else. I mean, it was,
And that was your love.
Yeah, the guitar was in my,
and
music.
you wanted to be Jimmy,
Yes.
that was your hero.
Yes, yeah. It was music.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I developed, even though I was doing the thing with rock, I loved jazz. Because my dad always had the jazz music playing. So I had this thing in my head, I'll slow it down and do some jazz too. Then I go back into
the rock
Jimmy.
and roll, right?
Yeah, so I was all over the place.
I mean, listen, I love music, and I love jazz. I love Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy's level of guitar play, there's nothing. I mean, Eric Clapton's probably number 2 of all time, and he's still miles away from Jimi Hendrix, and he admits that himself. You could actually, at 11, and you were playing Jimi Hendrix-ish stuff?
It was
what is that? You gotta explain.
It was an 11-year-old type.
Right.
It was like just scratching the surface of what he was doing. I was missing keys, missing notes, and everything. But you could tell, okay, that was Purple Haze. You could tell it was certain things.
Wow.
And then it was other, anything outside of Jimmy ended up being easy.
Right.
So when I went and I would hear a jazz artist playing, and I would pick that up, that was easy compared to what he was doing.
Kenny Burrell kind of jazz.
No, it wasn't the hardcore.
Grant Green.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it was like Earl Klugh. Who else?
Grant
at that time?
Green. Some of the just instrumental kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Which is cool.
Yeah. They call it modern jazz. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, all right. So, I mean, and then you finally, start developing this fascination with football, and you kind of, which is, I mean, that's a great thing for a young kid to lose his ability to do his first love, but then recalibrate, right? And think about doing other types of things. So, you start developing you took to music easily. Why do you think just natural athleticism? I mean, you took to football very quickly from a speed standpoint, athletic. I mean, was it harder for you to get football going or music? What was easier?
I think they were probably the same. Yeah, because I went out, again, I didn't understand the game. I had to learn all the positions, and then I had to figure out which one would work for me.
Right.
Because I wasn't the biggest guy, so I'm looking at these other guys, and I didn't want to hit nobody. This is new to me. So I'm looking at these guys running into each other. I said, now the guy out there out wide catching the ball.
That looks good.
Yeah, that looks easy. It looks kind of cool. He catches the ball. He scores a touchdown. I said, that's me. So I got locked into the whole wide receiver thing. And then I started watching it on TV, and I watched the Miami game and saw Paul Warfield. And then I saw, who else? Otis Taylor over at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
So I'm watching all these guys. They were the greats. And I said, okay, I could do that. And that's when it took off. So I just started watching. I was a student of the game.
Right.
I would watch, and then I would go out there by myself on a field and just work on different things. And if I couldn't go to the field at Van Ness Park where we grew up at, I would go in the yard, or we would play all up and down the street, and other families didn't care if you ran up all and tore the grass up. They didn't care at that time.
Wow.
They were just happy the kids were active and doing something.
And by the time, you recover from that injury, you start playing high school football, you're getting pretty good. But once, your high school career ends, I mean, what was the offer situation like? Because before you come to UNLV, you're playing junior college football. So
yeah, I went
happened?
to Southwest Junior College. Well, what happened when I came out, I wanted to go to USC. Everybody wanted to go to USC. In fact, I was, only so many minutes away. The high school that I went to, we had a senior, a guy that was 2 years older than me, that Melvin Jackson. He got a full ride to USC. He was one of their top All-American linemen at USC. The McKeever brothers, I'm going way back. They went to my high school. Gordon Alexander. We had it was a lot of guys that came from Mount Carmel High School that went to USC and other top colleges and ended up playing in the NFL. So I had all that in the back of my mind.
Wasn't OJ there?
OJ, no, he went to USC.
Yeah,
but
he wasn't around that time.
No, Lynn Swan was there.
But those guys put that school on the map a lot.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Right.
They won a national championship.
Yeah,
but it was Pat Hayton. J.K. McKay, John McKay's son, Lynn Swan. It was all those guys that I used to look at. But it was a running team. They ran the ball a lot. It was they called it Student Body Right University. And so me being a receiver in high school, I was a high school All-American at Mount Carmel. Yeah, I did really well. And when I came out, so SC offered me a half scholarship. And they told me, well, you're not going to play because we're running the ball a lot. And at that time, I think they had J.K. McKay and Lynn had just left.
They had somebody else. Lynn was a receiver, so what is he doing there when
he was there? But he scored a lot on punt returns and other stuff.
He was like
they were running the ball a lot. Yeah,
he was like a utility kind of guy.
Yeah, but when he touched it, he scored.
Right. It was like a Gale Sayers, like doing all
he would touch it and
But he really wasn't lining up. Even him, I mean, a wide out.
He would line up out wide.
But
it was different. They ran the ball.
Wow.
They were known for running the ball, and that goes back to Mike. Garrett? Mike Garrett. He was one of the first Heisman Trophy winners at USC.
Okay.
He was before OJ.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
So all of those guys, paved the way for it to be a university that just focused on running first, passing when we have to. So I'm looking at all that, and they said, well, go to a junior college for a semester, and then you could come in here. And so that's how I ended up at Southwest.
Gotcha.
And then I went there for a year, and then I ended up at UNLV because UNLV wanted me out of high school. Washington State wanted me out of high school, but I had this SC thing
in your mind,
in the back of my head.
So after the 2 years, why didn't you go to SC after the junior college stuff rather than going to UNLV?
UNLV brought me in on a recruiting trip.
Gotcha.
They talked to me in high school. They brought me back, after that year at Southwest.
Yeah.
So I go to a Diana Ross concert. I met Jerry. I knew of Jerry, and Jerry Tarkanian was instrumental in getting guys from L.A. Yeah, I'm at a concert. Excuse me. I'm backstage, met her, went through the whole shot. And that's so funny because she ended up doing a show for us for the alumni of the Raiders.
Oh, wow.
And I hadn't seen her since way back then.
Wow.
But
and she still looks good.
She does. Yeah. She does. And so, I went to the concert, and I'm just looking, and then they took us, to a couple of the casinos. We ate, and I'm looking at all this stuff going on. Just my mind was just lighting up. And I said, yeah, this is a place to go. So that's how I ended up at UNLV.
Wow.
Because it was like, it was a lot happening.
And when you get there, you're at UNLV, how quickly does your success from All-American in high school translate to UNLV? I'm sure you're tearing it up in junior college,
UNLV, I played behind a receiver named Brian Harris. I was faster than him, ran better routes. I mean, it was just one of those things. He was well-connected, had started the year before. Excuse me. On the other side was Henry Vereen. They were good receivers, and they were locked in. Henry was real outstanding. So it was a numbers thing. I alternated. And the more I opened my mouth asking for more playing time, the farther they pushed me back. So I went I only caught 2 passes my last 2 years there.
That's insane.
I caught 2 passes. But I ran track. I was a track runner, so.
And I mean, which is crazy because nowadays, I mean, with transfer portals, all that kind of stuff, I mean, people wouldn't handle that. They'd leave they dip in a second if that happens. But explain to me, because it just doesn't make sense for an outsider of the game who just loves it. Why, when it would behoove a coach to put their best talent on the field, why do things not work that way? I mean, do you have an answer for that?
We have tight end Cleve Jackson. Went 4th round to the Giants. he was alternating with two other guys. He didn't start. We had like 4 or 5 people that were on second team that weren't playing, that should have been playing and got in the NFL. So it was different. They were just playing games. They had their favorites. And I was like, why even bring me in if you're going to do this crap? I was ready to leave UNLV after halfway through that first year.
Yeah.
You know who stopped me? Jerry Tarkanian. I was walking through the hallway, and he was on one end of the athletic complex, and then Tony Knapp, our football coach, was on the other end, bookends. So I'm walking through the office one day. I had made up my mind. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So I walked by Jerry's office. I never looked into the office, so I didn't know he was in there. So all of a sudden, when I passed the office, I hear, Leo, come here. So I looked back. I backed up. Jerry's in the office. He said, come in here. So I walked in. He said, close the door. Closed the door. He said, sit down. He said, what's the shit I hear about you leaving? And I said, what? Yeah, he had found out. He said, what is this crap I hear about you leaving, going somewhere else? And I said, well, I'm alternating. I'm not playing. And I said, it's not that, guys are better than me, and they're just not playing me. I said, I only caught a couple of passes.
Wow.
I said, it's just not making sense.
Yeah.
So he said, you better stick in there, hang in there, and do what you need to do. He said, once you start leaving and quitting like that, you're going to continue to do it in life. He said, I'm going to give you a life story you need to do. And he just ran it down. And I looked up, and I never looked back.
And was he right?
He was right, yeah. I mean, because you run into the same situation. I could have went, to Washington State or somewhere else, and they would have had their favorites. And I'm alternating with them.
Right.
They told me one story before going there. Once I get there, it's a different story. So, I listened to him, and it worked out.
And as we're making our way through your history and your story, so Tarkanian keeps you there. You're still not getting a lot of production there because you're not getting fed.
Yeah.
How do we make it to the NFL?
Track. I
Track's
ran track.
How it happened.
Yeah, track.
So
I
give
ran
us
track.
that whole
Well, I'm running track.
drafted.
I ran track in high school.
Yeah.
So.
And you're at UNLV. You're doing.
Yeah,
track.
I'm running track for UNLV. They had finished spring ball, senior year. Cleve Jackson and Aaron Mitchell were two of the athletes that I played with that were projected to go high in the draft. Cleve went fourth round, and I think Aaron went second round to Dallas.
Wow.
And they would tell me when the guys, there was no such thing as combines and all that stuff we see today. So you would have scouts from different NFL teams that would come on campus, and they would come and they would have a list of the guys that were projected to go to the NFL, and they would work you out that way. They'd have you run a 40, have you do a vertical jump, have you do a 40-yard shuttle run, and then they take your height and weight, all that stuff. So Cleve and Aaron, because, they were projected to go high, would tell me, hey, Dallas is coming out today.
Oh, wow.
And so I get my shoes. I'd leave the track because I'm running track at the time, go get my football shoes, and then I'd run out there and ask whoever that scout was. I would ask him if I could run a 40, if I could work out for him, because I had this burning desire to play pro football in the NFL. So for about 2.5 weeks, each one that came out would tell me, no, we have a list of the guys that are projected to go in the NFL, and you're not one of them. So I kept hearing that. Now, the Buffalo Bills had been out 3 times. 3 times this guy had told me, no, you can't run. He ended up coming back again because they really wanted Cleve.
A 4th time.
Came back a 4th time. I went up to him a 4th time, and he looked at me. He had a cigar that day, and he looked at me, and he said, we're going to do this again? And I said, yeah, can I run for you? And he said, I'll let you run. He was so sick and tired of me bugging him. He said, I'm going to get this out the way, and he's not going to run a fast time, and then I'm out of here. So I got down. He wasn't even making eye contact with me. He barely was holding his clock. So, he ended up picking it halfway up. He had the cigar in the other hand. I took off, ran the 40. When I ran by him, he hit the watch, looked at it. Then he looked up at me. Then he looked at it again. Then he looked up at me, and he said, come here, run again. So I went down, and I knew I had him then. So I got in my stance. I ran again. And then he's watching. He hit the clock. He said, run a 3rd time. So I ran a 3rd time. And then he said, what's your name? I said, Leo Gray. So he said, I'll be back. And he left. He walked in the coach's office to talk to Tony Knapp. So, Tony told me what had happened. He walked in there and asked Tony, hey, I just worked a kid out. He ran the fastest time I timed this year. He ran, you know, 4.28
What?
or 4.3.
A
Yeah.
4.2?
Mhm.
Oh my God!
And he said, this kid, fastest kid of time. And he said,
Oh,
how come he didn't play?
God.
So Tony Knapp said, oh, we had some other receivers that were really good. They had been here. You know, Leo came in late and, you know, he's a good player, but, you know, he just ran it down like that. So the guy said, okay. And he left. The word got out to the other NFL teams that they had this kid at UNLV that could run. So every time they came to look at Cleve and Aaron, I was on the list. So I went from not being on the list, not projected for nothing, to being a person they would ask for.
And then what ends up happening? Do you get drafted?
Well, no, I was a free agent.
Free agent.
Growing up as a kid, I had my whole bedroom wallpapered with Sports Illustrated pictures. So I had all those little magazines, and I always had Raider pictures up. I just loved that silver and black uniform. So I put these pictures all over the wall, and I'm looking at these pictures. I'd lie in bed and just throw the ball up, catching the ball all night. You know, just visualizing myself.
Like Fred Biletnikoff, like who would be?
Yeah, Freddie was there, and Cliff was there.
Yeah.
So I would visualize myself, you know, playing in the NFL, playing with these guys, and I knew I could run. So, and I was, my work ethic was up there. I worked really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't, you know, wasn't one of those just kicking back. First thing in the morning, I was doing something. Middle of the day, at night, you know, eat, sleep, drinking.
So you're looking
football.
up, you know, your bedroom. You got Cliff Branch. You got Fred Biletnikoff up there. And after word gets out that we got this guy who can really run, and all the teams like it, the Raiders end up signing him. Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up, you know, Al loved speed. So I went to the Raiders as a wide receiver. And so the first mini camp I did really well. And I mean, Cliff even pulled me off to the side and was talking, hey man, you run great routes and you got hands, you know, you're going to end up being around here. So third mini camp, Al called me in to meet with him. So I go into his office. I'm scared to death. I didn't know what was going on. I knew Al wasn't the one that would cut a person. So I figured he just wanted to talk to me. When I walked in his office, he said, sit down. I sat down. He said, you're doing really well out there. He said, I like your work ethic. He said, I love what you're doing. He said, have you ever played defense? I looked up. Now I'm in shock. I never had played defense. I was just a wide receiver since that day I went out on that porch and was looking outside at the kids in the neighborhood.
You played center for a day, and then you were always wide receiver.
Yeah. So he said, you know, we're only going to probably keep Malcolm Barnwell, who's really fast too. That was my roommate. So he said, I want to move you down early to Oakland, and I want you to work out with the guys. And that's how it started. And I ended up moving to defensive back. And
and then you know, and I mean, we got to get into the Super Bowl XV, and you know, Lester Hayes is there. You know, Mike Davis. You know, which I love always. You know, as another Mike Davis, I always love talking about that.
That's my
RIP.
big brother.
Yeah, but let's talk about. There's a few things in your story that I think are super, you know, integral to who you are as a person, and important for people to take home messages from. Number one, I mean, first of all, the persistence, right? The persistence with this Bill Scout. Do you remember this guy's name?
No.
Okay. The persistence with this Bill Scout, I mean, to keep asking him for an opportunity to actually run a 40, right? Those type of driving factors, it's remarkable to me. What was instilled in you? I mean, is this from your parents? Why did you have such a drive? And it's crazy because when we look back on our lives and successful people and how we get to, you know, where we want to be, you know, now being a Super Bowl champion, I mean, look how little things along the road. I mean, if you weren't persistent, this was never going to happen. All those pictures in your childhood bedroom, persistence made that happen. What was inside you that made you overcome that and have the inner strength to continue when this guy's shutting you down constantly?
Well, when growing up, I watched my mom, you know, work 2 jobs, and I have 2 sisters, one older and one younger, and she took care of us after my dad left, and she was just driven.
And your dad left, and
they got divorced.
Did you ever?
I mean, he would come back and forth now and then, but
you
know, they never saw me play in high school. I was a high school All-American. They never saw me play one game. I mean, he actually didn't see me till I was with the Raiders. So, and my mom never saw me play. So she didn't understand football, and she was working so hard. So it was one of those things, watching her and what she was going through, you know, I felt all the stuff that I wanted to do, I needed to make it easier for her. So I didn't need to go and ask her to help me with this and to help me with that. So I would just pretty much do it on my own. It was just like the kid that was going in the garage playing the piano and doing all of that stuff. They didn't know I was doing that for a good 6 months.
See,
I was in that garage. Nobody knew. My family.
But when you're running that, you finally, the fourth time this Bill Scout's there, you're about to run for him. He can care less. He's not even looking at the timer. He's not even making eye contact with you. In that moment, can you go back in time and remember what you were feeling in that moment? Were you scared? Like, this is my one opportunity. If I run
not at all.
If I run a 5.2, he's not gonna talk to me again.
I was laughing inside when he gave me the okay. He was in trouble. I knew, because I'm running track, and I had sense enough to know what a good 40 time was, what a great 40 time was, watching Cleve and Aaron. So they would tell me stuff. Yeah, I went out for the Rams came out here. I ran a 4.5, and they went crazy. But I'm thinking, oh, if they ever give me a chance, it's on. I said, if they goof up, but I put in the work.
That's amazing. And then,
so my confidence level was way up there.
And then what year are you actually on the Raiders? So what time? When
that was 80. That 80 season.
So that first season. Because it's 80, and then 81's the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that season, let's break that down. You guys beat my Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
A lot of special people on that team. But what was, when you get in there, you're taking your junior college information, you're taking your UNLV and seeing kind of these cultures of all these places. You step into the Raiders organization. Tom Flores is there. You got Al Davis. You got, a lot of these legends, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, all these guys are there. Jim Plunkett, a Heisman guy from Stanford's the quarterback. So you're there.
Well, you know who the starter was that year?
Who?
When I first went there?
It wasn't Plunkett?
No, it was Pastorini.
Really?
Yeah. They traded Stabler to Houston.
Gotcha.
Pastorini came over in that trade. Jack Tatum actually went to Houston, too. So it was Jack Tatum, Dave Casper, and Stabler all went to Houston.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean,
so Pastorini was number one. Al loved him because he threw a beautiful long ball. He and I used to hook up all the time on the long passes when I was a receiver, because I was a receiver then, and I'm catching all these long passes. I mean, he actually knew my name and everything. Hey, Rook, come here, Leo. Yeah, he and I hit it off because I was fast and I could go deep and I could catch it. And then, so that's what really happened.
At what point does Plunkett become the guy?
Well, Pastorini broke his leg the third or fourth game of the year.
Wow.
And then they put Plunkett in, and Plunkett took it and ran with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's so many stories we see in
you see that NFL, 80 years, the first 3 games.
We see that a lot of times in the NFL. We see guys like Kurt Warner, a couple people who come in after Brady, with Bledsoe is a perfect example. So there's a lot of guys that happens to. So I wasn't familiar with that with Plunkett, but when you're seeing that shifting dynamic, you have the connection with Pastorini, which is a good thing for you. When he goes down, Plunkett comes in. What's the climate like in the locker room? What's the temperature like? Is everybody thinking, we have this pedigree, Stabler won Super Bowl there before. Now with him going down, Plunkett there, does the team have the confidence that we're going to actually win the Super Bowl? Because you guys became the first team to ever be a wild card to win the Super Bowl when that happened. So what's the temperature like when that happens week 3 or 4?
Well, when you have future Hall of Famers in the locker room, like Gene Upshaw, Art Shell, whole different attitude. Willie Brown was our coach. All of these guys were legends.
Right.
So, you hear the stories all the time. And then, you look at a person like that year, Lester was the defensive player of the year. He had 13 interceptions. And, you go across the board, the guys were just different. We were dealing with Pete Rozelle and Al were going at it left and right.
Wow.
So it was like one of those things. We were dead set. The last person Pete Rozelle wanted to hand a Super Bowl trophy to was Al.
And why did they not like each other? What was going on?
Well, Al was trying. Remember, Al is the reason we have a Super Bowl, because he merged the AFC and the NFC together. And it was when he started talking about moving to L.A., Pete did whatever to try to block it. So it was like Al was always the one that would put his foot down and let Pete know, hey, you're not going to do that. You can't do it that way. And so it was a competitive thing, and Al always came out ahead. So that's what happened with them.
Very interesting. So you have Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers in the lot. I mean, even, Ray Guy. I mean, there's all these guys there that are being legendary figures in, the Hall of Fame and football history. So you guys really are clicking and all that stuff. And then once you get to the playoffs and you're working your way through, I mean, Super Bowl day, you're there. I mean, first of all, flash that baby for the camera. You got to flash that. I mean, look at this. I mean, that is a gorgeous looking thing right there.
Thank you.
Wear that proudly. Think about this. When you're on that team, Super Bowl XV, you're playing the Eagles that day. You're reflecting probably back to you being in your childhood bedroom, wanting to be a Raider, liking the colors, the silver and black. What's going through your mind Super Bowl day?
I mean, Al put us in a position where the confidence level of that team was so high, going in as a wild card. And then the first game, it was like out of that whole season, we were projected to win only maybe 3 games. We ended up winning 11 games.
Right.
When we went to the playoffs, the first one was against Houston, the wild card game. They were favored to win. We beat them. That went against Stabler. That was Stabler and Dave Casper.
Wow.
Old Raiders.
Full
Jack
circle.
Tatum. Yeah.
Wow.
So beat them, knocked them off. Second playoff game was out in Cleveland in the cold. They were favored to win. We beat them. Third game, the AFC Championship, was the San Diego Chargers. They were supposed to blow us up. They had Jefferson and Joyner and Kellen Winslow.
Wow.
They had won the division, blew the division up. So we ended up beating them.
Who was that? Fouts? Who was the?
That was Fouts.
That was QB. Okay.
That was Fouts. And they had Chuck Muncie in the backfield.
Yeah.
They had nothing but all pros.
Wow.
And we knocked them off. So everybody just kept betting against us, but it motivated us. Super Bowl, we were favored to lose against your Eagles. And so,
I mean, you guys got up to a 14-0 lead. I mean, Ron Jaworski, Rod Martin picked him off three times.
Sure did.
3 times. So there was really never a chance. And, I guess your lineup, did you line up against like Harold Carmichael or any?
Lester, it was Harold Carmichael. I forgot the guy on the other side. And Dwayne Osteen was the other corner.
Was Mike Quick?
No, I think this was before Mike Quick.
Wow.
Yeah, he's younger. It was another. I think Mike Jackson sticks in my head.
Okay.
But it was another receiver on the other side.
Yeah.
Dwayne had the other receiver. Lester had Carmichael.
Gotcha.
But
and
they shut that down.
And Super Bowl day, I mean, you're lining up back there with Lester Hayes, Mike Deeds, playing special teams. What your role?
I was actually on injured reserve. I was hurt.
You were hurt
at the time, so I'm on the sideline and
Wow.
So, but Lester, Monty Jackson was one. We called it a pirate defense. That was Otis McKinney and Monty Jackson were the two outside the 4 starters that would go in and play the nickel package. We called it a nickel package and a dime package. It was like, I forgot the pirate, something else. Yeah. But anyway.
And when did you get sick? When did you get hurt?
Oh, shoot. I got hurt like the 3rd game.
Oh.
Then I came back and had hurt again.
So you got hurt around the same time as Pastorini, you're saying?
No, it was after that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had had a partial tear on a quad and a strained hamstring, and then I had a rib cartilage issue. Because so I was dealing with those different things. But we went to all the away games, everything. Still right there. Had to practice. Had to go out there, even though I was banged up. Had to practice with them and everything. But
like scout team kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the fact that I have been a wide receiver most of the time when we did the scout team, I was whoever that top receiver was, I would play that guy. Whoever the top corner was, when we went on the offense side, I would be that corner going against Cliff or whatever.
See, I love that.
Yeah,
now,
I put my work in. I might have not ran through the lights at the Super Bowl, but I put work in. All the guys respected me as if I was all right out there.
Hey, you deserve that ring. And, let's talk about this. I mean, it's been a pleasure for me to be here in the Las Vegas community and, run into you at events and see how active you are in the community. We were alluding to this earlier in the show. The Raider way, the Raider organization and franchise, it's such a special fabric and culture to what the ties that keep you guys, tied to the organization. What is it about the Raiders organization where all these other teams, you played in the Canadian Football League, you know a lot of guys who played on other teams and only had it 1 year or so with the Raiders, right? What is it about the Raiders organization that keeps, this close, tight-knit feeling with all alumni like you?
I think it's the front office and the whole mindset is really laid back. It's not like you got a bunch of celebrities that are bigger than life. I mean, these guys are like, I'll never forget the first day I walked in a locker room. It's Art Shell and Gene Upshaw. They both got cigarettes. I'm like, guys smoke cigarettes in the locker room? Yeah, Freddie. And I'm looking at these guys and I'm like, oh, it's like that? I mean, it's just they made you feel relaxed. And once you got there, once the team, when they got down to the final roster, is your family. And then it's just the attitude of having each other's backs. I mean, I'll never forget, we were at a club. This was in Santa Rosa when we were in training camp. And Matuzak was one of the big enforcers for us. And John is like 6'8", 280 pounds, ripped and crazy. But anyway, John was like one of those big brothers. And we're in this little restaurant bar, kind of like a nightclub. And this guy looks at me and says, "You're talking about woman?" And, the woman had walked up to me. And I looked, I said, "No, I didn't know who that was." Yeah. So all of a sudden I hear somebody go, "You don't talk to a Raider like that." It's Big John. He grabbed the guy, threw the guy out of the bar. Threw him outside. And, they just, and even after I left, after 2 years, and I went to Canada and played up in Canada, John would give my mom tickets. They had moved to L.A. Wow. He would give my mom tickets, called her mom, that whole shot. They developed a relationship. So my mom, when she didn't see me play when I was playing, she was going to all the Raider games all of a sudden, and I'm in Canada playing. So it was like the bond and the way the guys treat you, it never changes. That's where the whole once a Raider, always a Raider comes from, and it's straight from the heart. I got a bunch of buddies that play with other teams, and the stuff that we do as a unit, as a group, as alumni, doesn't compare with these other teams in the National Football League.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping this up, speaking of, your mom and dad, so tell us a little bit. I mean, they never saw one game in high school. When you're on the Raiders and you're finally, what were some of those interactions like with your mom and dad when they finally got to see you?
Well, my mom was learning. She was still learning the game. So now my dad had the nerve to ask me to go to the Super Bowl, so I gave him and my grandfather tickets. They went to the Super Bowl. They were so tipsy when it was over. I lied to them and had them go back to the hotel, told them we didn't have an after party. So
but you did.
Yeah, we had one.
What was this after party like? What can you tell us? Is it is this the craziest party of all time when you win a Super Bowl? What happens?
It was really kind of laid back. We were so confident when we went in there, that we were going to win. We were confident.
So what's the party like?
You had a bunch of bars and a bunch of people, but it wasn't like women jumping out of cake and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't nothing like that. It was really kind of laid back.
So
everybody was so tired. It was like, okay, we did it.
Gotcha.
It was like a relief. Everybody, a lot of hugging, a lot of talking about about what we were going to do next year when everybody came back. And so it was just one of those things. It was in New Orleans, and so leading up to that, we didn't have curfew. So we were out and about. We were eating gumbo every day. That's when Popeye's Fried Chicken had just opened up in Louisiana.
Oh, my God.
And they would back a truck in every day. And we're eating that chicken. So we just had a good time. It gave us a great opportunity to get closer. Even though we were close, we got closer during that playoff run and then that Super Bowl week, because you go up there a week early and – yeah.
That's amazing stuff. Flash forward to now, you're still, using that skill set, that natural ability, that 4.2 that got you in the NFL, you're helping other people with that with Leo Gray, speedtraining.com. You got a little bit of everything. You got athletes that you're working with, young athletes, college kids. You're working with adults as well. You got all different things you're doing. Tell us a little bit about here in the community. You know, we all want to learn speed and training from Leo Gray. So how's this work?
Well, you know, Al used to always say, we used to crack up about it. He would say, you can't coach speed. It's a natural gift. And I would always laugh about it and say, I proved a lot of people wrong because I've been teaching speed for years. So you could always perfect someone's technique and show them how to get in the proper running motion and what part of the body placement, what should be stepping down and what the arm action should be when you're running. And the fact that I ran track, I just ended up creating a program that will allow kids to, you know, get the most out of when they're running, which, you know, you look at most of my athletes are soccer players because, as you know, soccer players juggling and dribbling the ball with their feet. They're not using their arms. So it's easy to teach them how to get their arms in an uppercase L position and slide it back and forth from the shoulders. And it's like you're just giving them a new gift once you teach them. So I was doing that, and then I started to get athletes in other sports, and it just worked for me. So it's a great feeling to watch the transformation of a kid that was running a 4.6 or whatever, and you get them down to a 4.4, 4.3, and they just go nuts. So I've been doing it, and you know, with the adults, it's just cardiovascular, just trying to get them in shape and put them in a position. You know, everything is based on body placement, technique. I was always a technician. So everything I do is helping the person get into the right position to be able to execute a certain movement. And that goes across the board from lifting weights, burning, trying to lose weight, trying to put on weight, trying to put on muscle. It's all about the technique, you know, when you look at it.
If you're, if you wanted to say a message to people who are out there listening right now, somebody maybe, you know, who's like that little kid like you were in their bedroom nowadays, they got Devontae Adams up there. They got Hunter Renfrow up there, Darren Waller. What would you tell that kid who wants to be like you and actually, you know, make that dream a reality and make their way to the NFL? What do they need to work on? What's the big takeaways?
I would tell them first, put the cell phone down. Leave the cell phone alone and stay off social media. That's what I would tell them.
Wow.
Because, you know, if the kids that I train right now, when I first get them and the parent brings them out, I'll ask, how many hours do you spend on your cell phone a day? They say maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. How many hours do you spend training, working out or whatever? 30 minutes, 45 minutes? So
it's got to be inverse. You do
they've made the telephone their god.
Right.
And so that's really why you've seen a group of kids that are underachievers now compared to back in the day. They think their training is hard, but they're not. They're so busy. And, you know, when they train, now they got the cell phone in there recording everything, you know, as if they're a professional. And so it's a different attitude where they need to work a lot harder. I mean, they're scratching the surface. I could even look at the kids I had 10 years ago, how they trained harder than the ones I have now.
Wow.
And then, you know, going out of town, he's 30 now. He just turned 30 years old on Christmas Eve, son. And he played tennis at Palo Verde. And I had him on the court 6 hours a day. His mom thought I was crazy, but I knew what it would take, you know, especially, you know, individual sport.
Why?
You know how you could tell? You could tell if someone wants to get hit, or if I could tell. I call my son a diva. He was like, you know, he wasn't going to get any dirt on clothes. That wasn't happening. So I had to find a sport because I knew he was athletic. I had to find a sport where there wasn't going to be any contact. So I found one with a net in between him and the opponent, and that was tennis. Wow. So he ended up, you know, playing tennis, and they won state 3 out of his 4 years. Wow. I mean, he did well. And I had him out there 6 hours a day. I was driving him, and he ended up becoming a great athlete as a result of it. But I used the work ethic that I had and instilled it in him, and it helps him today.
And we've seen
based on what he does in life.
And, you know, we've seen guys like Agassi, his dad was a nut. You know, Pete Sampras, his dad was a nut, getting these guys driven to succeed like that. But
Mm-hmm.
when you were training, I mean, your parents didn't even go to watch you play football. They didn't even know you played music. So, I mean, you were getting your son to play 6 hours a day on the court, but nobody was telling you to go out and do that. So, I mean, in order to be a Super Bowl champ, in order to make it to the professional levels of success in any sport, I mean, do you need to have that drive from yourself? Can it come from somebody else, or does that need to be something that you're pushing yourself and it's not coming from mom or dad?
By the grace of God, I think I was blessed where, it came from above, where I was competing against my family. I was competing against the kids in the neighborhood. I was competing against all the high schools, competing against going to a top college. It was always that competitive
drive.
Yes, it was always there. So it was me against the world. When I walked in, I always felt like my back was up against the wall.
And you can't teach that.
You could tell them. Today's athletes are a lot tougher.
What's easier to teach, speed or that?
Probably speed. Because it's a little different. I go through it all the time.
So if you were going to give that advice, put down the phone, and you're saying maybe like a competitive kind of drive, like being able to create some sort of, like a little edge, a little chip on your shoulder.
Yeah. That's why. I mean, if you listen to Tom Brady, he was pissed off when I think he went 6th round or whatever.
Yeah.
When he came in, he was mad at the world. Today, he continues to be mad. Aaron Rodgers, if you listen to him, remember he was like the 22nd pick or something, 24th in the first round?
Yeah, he got passed
and he watched all these other quarterbacks. They never let that go. So that allows him to get to a whole nother level compared to the other person that had everything given to him. Look at Ryan Leaf. He comes in, he's destined to be whatever, but a different mindset. So you gotta be driven, and the kids don't work as hard. Right. I mean, you got all these specialists now that have all these programs that you could learn how to do this and you could learn how to do that.
Yeah.
They're working on the physical part of the athlete, but not the mental part. The kids need mental training.
A lot to talk about here. The great Leo Gray. My last question for you. Can you still shred on the guitar?
I haven't touched one.
You haven't touched a guitar since?
Yeah, I was so devastated. I picked up probably when it was first stolen, I was 12. I probably went a good 8 years without being around an instrument. So I picked up one a couple of times, but no, I never went out. It's been a few times I went to the Guitar Center and I walked around the guitar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I walked around the store and they got all of
them.
Yeah. And then I walk right back out.
It's like a horror movie for you.
Yeah.
It's like you get traumatized.
Exactly. And I said, one of these days I'm going to go and buy a Gibson guitar, a nice classical guitar, and just start strumming again. But I haven't done it.
Dude, you're 66. You look like you could start next week for some NFL teams.
No.
God bless you.
You see me early in the morning, it's a different person.
Hey.
When you have to take a shoulder, throw it over, and then take a leg and just swing it over to get out of bed, it's different.
I'm telling you, you look good. God bless you. Thanks so much for joining us here in the huddle. I think I want to be there when you buy that guitar. All right?
Okay, I'll let you know.
I might chip in.
I'll make sure I let you know.
All right.
Yeah.
Leo Gray joining us here in the Vegas Huddle. These are the conversations that we have here in the Vegas Huddle, learning about the success of great people in our community, great athletes who are really doing a phenomenal job. Leo, thanks for everything you're doing for our community, all the support you give to veterans, all different places as part of the Raider alumni and the Raider Foundation. And you can go to leograyspeedtraining.com. If you're an adult, if you're a kid, you want to get that training, you want to be a professional athlete, that's the place to go. Leo, thanks again so much. Until next time, that's it from inside Vegas Huddle.
Thank you.